And I'm going to talk to you guys about Elixir and Latin America. I'm Latin America. I was born in the beautiful country of Colombia. I was away for about 10 years, came back. Now I'm living there, and I'm doing the Latin American thing. So I fell in love with Elixir about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, so pretty recent to this world. And I just love it. I've been developing for about 10 years, and I've never been happier than I am right now. I was thinking about becoming a carpenter because I was just so bored with everything that was around. But hey, I found Elixir, so thanks to Elixir, I'm still a programmer. Today, we're going to talk about that, some motivation, why we're here, why you're here. Bogdan, is it Bogdan? No, it's the other B. Bjorn is giving a talk over there. So thank you, that's competition. I also kind of want to be there, so we'll finish this quick and then we'll go. Then I'm going to talk about some presentations that I did, about some stories of Elixir in Latin America and what the future has in store for us, okay? So when I told my family, I say, I'm going to Germany. I told my grandma, I'm going to go talk to this conference. And she's like, oh, cool, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about Elixir. And she's like, what's Elixir, mijo? And I'm like, Grandma, this is how the talk's going to start. Elixir, the best programming language of the last decade. So welcome. We're here to talk about Elixir, the best programming language of the last decade. So that was me. What I did basically was, I loved the language so much. I really liked the community. So I started doing some talks all around Colombia, software festivals. I definitely stole this from that guy who was just here. No shame in that, right? But this was probably the best slide in the presentation because it's just great. You can just show everything that the Elixir ecosystem has to offer. There was about 3 people in this talk. One of them was my girlfriend, so thank you. But it was great. The 2 people who were actually there for the talk were super committed. They asked a lot of questions. They got interested. So, I just needed one. Then this was a different one. We had a little bit of a, more turn up. So this was Bogota. The previous one was Medellin. I'm not from any of these big cities in Colombia. This was Bogota. A bunch of students over here. There was, more grown-ups, I guess, but the bigger people. Then on that same talk, on that same festival, I did a workshop. I'm lying a little bit on that image because there were only 2 guys attending the workshop. These other guys were helping me install Elixir, but hey, there's a picture. It was amazing. It was about an hour and a half, and the 2 guys who were there were super, engaged. They really liked. They asked questions, and even though in their day-to-day they don't work with Elixir, I'm sure if they have an opportunity, they now know the ecosystem, right? This was another one in Pereira. Again, same slide I stole from Sasha. There is, I don't know if you've heard from TopTal, but TopTal is this hiring company. I have an account in TopTal, I guess, and they did a conference this year, so I was talking there about Elixir. I think Dave also gave a talk yesterday. He's also from TopTal. This was UbuCon, I don't know, Ubuntu conference, not too long ago. This was me. This was Uruguay. So I went to Uruguay to give a talk in their meetup, in their Elixir meetup about TDD. So this was a much more technical talk. But basically, yeah, it was great. It was awesome. I talked to all of these people about Elixir. I was happy. And then I thought, I want to learn a little bit more. Like, what do I actually know? So I decided to actually go and talk to people in Latin America who are doing Elixir, who are familiar with the ecosystem, and who could teach me more, right? Because that's why this whole journey started. So I talked to about 3 devs, 2 CEOs, 1 dev CEO, business guy. He just does it all. But all of them are related to Elixir. And the first person I talked to was Cairo. You gotta love that fucking name, Cairo. Cairo Noleto is his last name. He's Brazilian. He's worked for, Aprova, Somos Educazao, Tribe. These are three big companies in Elixir. He was amazing. I enjoy my conversation with him so much. With each one of these people, I talked an hour and a half. So, I'm going to condense what I talked to them. So I talked to them about a lot of things. But basically, Cairo forged 90 new Elixirists in his journey through Elixir, right? Yeah. Fuck yeah for Cairo. He got into Elixir after seeing, Ruby didn't scale, pretty similar journey that we all have. And when he was trying to find talent, when he was trying to find developers, because he had like kind of managerial role, it was super difficult for him to find Elixir developers. So he said, well, fuck it, I'll just train them. And that's what he did. So he taught 90 people about Elixir, which I think it's amazing, right? I want to do that. And during my conversation with Cairo, we talked about, strengths and weaknesses of Elixir and what he thought about, the language. And one thing he said that stuck with me was, there is applications and there is a bunch of code that you write, but there is one part of the code that is your business part of the code, right? Like the code that you really need to know. And that part that you really need to know is not a lot. And I think in Elixir we have this tendency of liking to be very explicit. We like things to be explicit. And sometimes reuse gets hampered because of that. So maybe, one perfect example that he gave me was the Django admin, or I don't know what the name is in Rails, but there is another back office, Rails back office, I don't know. But there is this library that you install, and you have an admin interface with CRUD for all your entities, and it takes you 5 minutes. In the Elixir world, I've had to do this, and I've probably implemented it twice or 3 times. And it takes 2-3 weeks, it's fun, but it's not as quick. So Cairo was telling me that this is one of the things he thinks a lot about in Elixir. We have to strike the right balance, not to be JavaScript and have left path, but to actually reuse code that is implemented many, many times throughout the ecosystem. Okay. Then I talked to Ricardo. Ricardo is a Colombian fellow just like me. Oh wait, one thing. Cairo, I made a new best friend. I don't know if he knows it, but yeah, he was amazing. I hope he likes me as much as I did him. Then I talked to Ricardo. Ricardo is a Colombian fellow like me. He's working for Erlang Solutions now. He started in Elixir back in 2015, 2016. I think he told me it was Elixir 0.12, something like that. OTP, I don't know, 8, 7, I don't even know, but it's a long time ago. I was really surprised to see that, like a Colombian like me was involved in the ecosystem for such a long time. And Ricardo was amazing. If I found a new friend in Cairo, I found a new mentor in Ricardo. I don't know if he knows it, but I'm going to keep bothering him with things, right? During his journey to introduce, so he worked at Tapsi and Erlang Solutions now. He's worked in more companies, but these are kind of the ones that we talked about the most. So in his experience at Tapsi, it was an uphill battle for him to get Elixir introduced. They were a Python shop. They were kind of Uber, but for actual taxi drivers, so just like order your taxi or whatever through an app. And they were having really a lot of difficulty scaling. So at peak times, in the morning when people go to work or in the afternoon when people go back home, the system would go down. And system going down in this context means you're losing money. You're literally losing actual money because people cannot order taxis. People cannot pay for their rides. So in his company, he was always fighting this battle of Python can do everything, right? Like all the other programmers, the other kind of people who were not as adept to him as learning, were saying, like, why? Why are we going to change our technology? Why are we going to step into this other thing that nobody knows, only you know, if Python can do everything, right? So he had this very a strong opinion about, you should probably go and do something in Elixir, see how it works, see how it's better, and then you can come and tell me that Python can do everything, right? Um, he got really deep into the Beam, learned a lot about the Beam, got really good at using the tools, and he talked to me about this idea of location transparency. Initially, I didn't understand it very well, but I went back, did a little bit more research, and I mention it because it's the idea that you can reference one process from anywhere, basically, that you have on your Beam. So you can have multiple nodes, and your nodes can call each other from, anywhere you can have them. So this is amazing. You can talk to everything from everywhere. So I don't think anything else has that. And I mean, that's the power of the Beam, right? One thing that he's, I don't know if I'm happy, but he would like to be improved. It's really easy to call Erlang from Elixir, but the other way around is probably not as easy, right? You probably have to work around a little bit more. So he would like to see some improvement in this field. And the last thing was, and I would say to this day, I'm in this category, right? Most of the Elixir code that I've written for production, it's a Phoenix application. So it's CRUD, it's kind of like a very simple app. You kind of just, he said something very funny, but it's like, you're just putting, an interface on top of your database, basically. That's what you're doing. You're just doing CRUD on top of your database. And that's not really taking much advantage of OTP. Maybe you're using live view, maybe you're using task async, but all of that stuff is happening underneath. The stuff that I'm actually interacting with every day is just Phoenix, right? So I want to get out of this category where I'm just a Phoenix developer, and I actually want to become Erlang OTP Elixir developer, right? Where you get to use the power of all of these things that are given to you. So that was great. Ricardo was great. I enjoyed my talk with him very much. And then I went and talked to Paulo. Paulo is a Brazilian. He used to work for Stone Payments. I think this is one of the biggest banks in Brazil. Then he worked at Dockyard. He's actually still at Dockyard, but he is one of the main maintainers of NX. I don't know if anyone knows of Pablo. Yeah. So he just got a grant from Mozilla. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But this was funny. He loves Elixir, right? Like, he's really deep into the ecosystem. He loves it. But this is what he said to me. Elixir annoys me the least. So it's kind of, it gave me some perspective on you have to choose the right tool for the job, right? Like, even if his favorite language, even if he loves it, the way he looks at it is like, yeah, this thing is what is working best with me to achieve my goal. So it's all about what you want to achieve, and it's all about the tool that you want to use. He got a Mozilla grant pretty recently. I think this was just announced, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, to work on NX. Basically, he wants to do sharding on NX, so that's pretty cool. And what I got from him, and this is pretty exciting actually personally, is that NX is Paulo's dream job, right? He graduated from school not too long ago, and he decided to start contributing to NX. He said to me, I don't know if it was the same day or the same week that NX came out, but he was already submitting pull requests, right? So he did it. He actually got his dream job by getting involved in the community, and I love that. Anyone can do that, right? Like, he's not special. I mean, he's really smart, but we all are, I guess. So that was great. Then I talked to Marcelo. Marcelo is an Uruguayan. He's the CEO. He's a technical CEO of Mimiquate. Mimiquate is a company in Uruguay that is dedicated to staff augmentation. We talked about this chicken and egg problem, right? You don't find enough Elixir developers because because developers are not motivated enough to learn Elixir, because where are they going to find a job, right? And companies don't go into Elixir because they cannot find Elixir developers. So how do you kind of break that cycle of what to go for first? And Marcelo's solution is the community. You start doing this, you start doing meetups, you start creating courses, you start translating articles, you start talking to students, to whoever you come across, and you tell them, hey, I'm sitting on this pile of gold that is Elixir, use it, it's amazing, JavaScript sucks. And at some point, they will maybe not immediately, but at least it's on their radar, right? So if at some point they have a choice on technology, if they have a saying, they can say, hey, I saw this Elixir thing that scales pretty well. It might be what we need, right? So it's kind of that. It's working on the sidelines to actually convince companies and convince people who have the choice to pick Elixir. So their solution for talent was in-house training. They did the same thing as Kaido, and they decided, okay, I'm gonna find good developers. I don't care what they program in. I'm gonna hire them. One of the cool stories that he talked to me about was they embraced LiveView really early on. So when LiveView came out, they immediately said, fuck yeah, we're gonna do this. And one of his fears was, what about offline, right? I don't think that's the first time I heard that. So what about offline? And it turned out that it was kind of an unfounded fear because we don't really expect things to work if we don't have signal on our phone. So very few things, very few projects actually require an offline mode. And most of the projects that they've worked on don't really need offline, okay? So it was kind of a lesson on, do I actually refrain myself from using this because of something that may or may not happen, right? So they actually still use LiveView, still use it for those projects, and it's worked great for them. Then I talked to Sebastian. He's also another Colombian. Has anyone heard of this? Monobank? So this is a back front end, to say it a certain way. They are not a custodian of money, but they provide all the services that a bank offers us. So they do credit cards, they do accounts, they do all of these things, right? It's pretty interesting. I hadn't really heard of that. But basically, they don't custody any money. They just provide the front end for the bank to offer those to your clients, yeah, right? They have had a great experience working with OTP and legacy banking because banking sucks. It's very slow. It's very outdated. You talk to them about a webhook, and they give you a spreadsheet or XML or some, anyone who's worked in banking probably knows what I'm talking about. But for him, it's been amazing because the power of OTP has given them kind of a barrier where everything from then out is banking, is legacy, is old, and everything from then in, it's new. So all of their data processing, all of their stuff can happen seamlessly using the power of OTP. He talked to me about this, the Python paradox. I don't know, has anyone heard of this, Python paradox? This is a really old article, 20 years, 2004, I think it was written. And it basically talks about how in 2004, finding Python developers, imagine that, finding a Python developer was hard, was difficult, because it was a newish language. But if you actually found those developers, they were really motivated. They were really good developers because they actually took the time to learn Python, right? So he said this is now the Elixir paradox. When you find an Elixir developer, it's actually the likelihood that it's going to be a good developer is high because it's a person who took time out of their normal working days who is actually motivated enough to go and learn Elixir on their own. So that was interesting, especially the part about Python because you lift up a rock and you find 10 Python developers and 40 JavaScript developers these days. And then one of the things is talent is scarce. This is kind of a recurring theme here. They actually look for Elixir developers. They don't train them in-house. So they have actually experienced some issues doing that. Okay. And finally, this is the last person I talked to. Does anyone know who he is? Yeah? Yeah, so I think he's pretty well known in the community. He was the one who connected me to a bunch of the Brazilian community. He was amazing. He's doing a lot of Elixir things. And my favorite part about this chat with him was the Elixir history, right? Because he was there in the early days. He was a co-founder with Jose in Plataforma Tech. They actually worked together for a bunch of time. So he told me about all of the conversations and all of the things that happened to make the language become a reality. So that was amazing. I'm not going to really say much because probably most of you know more than I do. And he talked to me about the pipeline problem because it was this issue of talent. I've seen this issue of talent coming back and coming back. And the pipeline problem is just that. Right now, It's really hard for a junior developer to get their first job. It's always been hard, but now it's harder because funding from, I guess, 2022, funding is not everywhere as it used to be before, right? Like before, being a developer is just like, how many jobs do you have, right? And now it's kind of like, it's more difficult. So his point, the point that he was trying to stress to me was, this is not just an Elixir problem, right? This is an everyone problem. So find a Ruby, PHP, whatever developer, maybe not JavaScript, because JavaScript, everyone does that. But it's kind of a difficult thing. So to recap, this is what I learned. I'm just about out of time here, but talent is scarce, right? Like this is kind of this kept coming back and coming back and coming back. But then train in-house. Why not? Take 1 month, take 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of their initial time. Have a playbook on how to teach somebody Elixir. Have a project, and given that you already have talent who knows Elixir, it's going to be really easy for them to level up. Learn OTP and the primitives. I think this is super important, especially for newcomers like me, right? Like we're not just Phoenix developers. Elixir is much more than Phoenix. And coming to conferences like this is great because I get to see, Erlang, more lower level stuff, other things like Gleam. So that's great. And maybe we should invest a little bit of time. And this is a great opportunity too, into reusability for the ecosystem. But make sure we don't become JavaScript, right? Like left path is just a symptom of what the ecosystem is. So we gotta be careful that we don't go there. And I don't know if I can do a Regan impression, but it's not what Elixir can do for you, it's what you can do for Elixir, right? So throughout this journey, throughout what I've been doing, I've been trying to seek out what kind of Elixir give me, but now that I'm here giving this talk, I understand that when you actually can give back something to Elixir, you learn a lot, right? And you grow as a developer, as a person. You meet new friends, you meet new people. So yeah, it's been amazing. And the future, what's in the future for me? I'm trying to do a course at the university in Elixir, so I just want to actually, go and teach them a web programming course where I get to choose what I teach, the technology. So I want to do this. There's a couple of bootcamps that I have planned in my home city. So it's just a weekend. We do a couple of problems, and we all solve them in Elixir. Keep giving talks. I love this. I love talking to people. I love, telling them how great Elixir is. And keep doing online courses. I have the first part of an online course in Spanish, so I would like to continue with that, and just like helping newcomers. And I hope one day I get to 90 people. So yeah, thanks. That's you can probably find me here if you're curious. And I don't know if there is any questions, any comments. Yeah.
If there is time, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have time.
I think we have time for maybe one question, and then it's lunchtime.
The question is, are you part of the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation? Are you a member of the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation?
No, I think...
No. OK, so now instead of a question, this will be an invitation. You should join the education working group on the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation.
OK.
I am a part of it. Talk to me afterwards. I will get you in.
Super. Ooh.
All right. Thanks, Andreas.